Hello and welcome to Key Digital Compass Control online certification course, level C3, entitled Getting Graphical, the C3 Template Building Methods. This course will teach you everything you need to know to build your own custom GUI for your Compass controllers. The agenda for this course: Part 1, Introduction to Compass Navigator's GUI Tools. We'll introduce you to and go into some depth on the provided libraries and elements which come as a package of Compass Navigator software. We'll then introduce you to our alignment and spacing tools that allow you to manipulate the positioning and spacing of said elements, perhaps buttons, groups, etc. Part 2, working with Compass Navigator's simple elements. We'll teach you how to create your own custom groups, buttons, etc., where Part 1 teaches you how to use the provided groups, buttons, etc. Furthermore, in Part 2, we'll also teach you how to create and utilize your own custom libraries. So once you've created your custom groups, buttons, images, and so forth, you're probably going to want to save them and store them away for use in future projects, and that is what we'll teach you in C3 Part 2. Part 3, Foundations of Template Building. We'll go over some of the visibility tricks that enable Compass Control to really separate itself from other control systems out there, where you can easily store a number of elements, groups, etc., all in one location instead of having to go page to page to page in order to select such items. Some of those tricks include visibility toggle, where a number of these elements, groups, etc. may be located in one place and only one of which is visible while the others remain invisible. And visibility list, which enables that swipe functionality so familiar with iOS devices, where there are many list positions and only one of which can be visible at any given time, and swiping left or right determines which position is the visible one. Also, Call Master Active Indicator, where you can have buttons be manipulated, their graphical appearance be manipulated based on the positions of those lists or what may or may not be visible in a visibility toggle situation. And finally, Part 4, Compass Navigator's interactive GUI elements, where we'll introduce you to using and discuss how to use sliders, which are quite useful for volume control, lighting control, and these sort of functionalities in your integration system. And the embedded web app, where many manufacturer partners feature a web app to control their device. We teach you how to embed that directly into our Compass controller. Also useful for security cameras. Anything with an IP address that uses HTML is supported through this web app. Now then, to introduce you to the provided libraries and elements, we will open up Compass Navigator software. As you know from C2 training, Compass Navigator is one of 5 software suites. I have 5 elements of the Compass Control software suite. I happen to have 6 Compass Control icons on my desktop right now because I am utilizing a beta version of the software. Of course, Compass Control you could easily find because of the blue nautical themed icons on your desktop or wherever you may have them located. We open up the Compass Control Navigator software. And for those of you who have had the software for quite some time, maybe even since the very first release of Compass Navigator, you'll notice that the software upon opening does open a little more quickly with recent releases of the software. Why is that? It's because where previously we had automatically opened all of our libraries that we will be introducing you to now, such as the image libraries, button libraries, group libraries, etc. We had previously automatically opened that, and now in the newer versions of the software we do allow you, the user, to open manually whichever libraries you will be working in. Now, the speed of Compass Navigator does vary when you're opening that, depending on the speed of your computer and processing power of your computer. Of course, you should keep in mind that I am currently utilizing some screen recording software that is affecting the performance and the speed of my computer. Opening Compass Navigator will open up your previously last utilized project. Go to File and select the large blue plus icon to create a new project, where it will ask you what you'd like to name that project and any additional information that you may like to enter. We'll call this the Provided Libraries and Elements project. Now, in previous versions of the software, Compass Navigator would not correct you if you utilize spaces in naming your project. However, although Compass Navigator still does not support spaces in project names, if you do enter that when naming the project, it will automatically add an underscore for you instead. So we now have a new project here. And in order to begin viewing an iPad or iPod controller, you do need to just build a basic system. A basic system could be as little as just an iPad. So let's go into our controlling options here. We have set up controllers, for example, where we can add our controlling devices such as iPad, KDMC 2500, iPod, etc., etc. Just press the button once and you'll have a new device. Just like naming a project, you're also not allowed to have spaces in the name of an iPad. These are basic network rules because the project lives in our cloud, the iPad pulls from our cloud, and the cloud itself does not like spaces in the names of the devices or projects. Naming the iPad here. And we'll just add an MC2500 because you'll see in future parts of this C3 course that we'll need some IR or RS-232 connectivity options. So we now have an iPad and KDMC 2500. And we are now able to jump into our view number 8. Where we can actually begin to see the iPad as long as we have dragged and dropped the iPad KDMC 2500 into the project. So we'll move over the MC2500, just drag and drop into that project. There we go. And we will also drag and drop our iPad into the project. Very good. Now we can see our iPad. And from here, I do like to work in that Workspace Layout 8. As I was mentioning, Workspace Layout 8 is one of the 8 predefined workspaces that we provide. And as you may already know, we can adjust those workspace layouts and you could customize each of the 8 to fit your own needs and comfort simply by grabbing their borders, maybe sliding to adjust the panel width or the panel height. Let's see here. This is a little difficult when running this video recording software, but we can see the mouse pointer moves over to a what looks more like a slider. And now what I can do is just go to this save disk and choose what layout would I like that to be. As I said already, I'm rather fond of number 8, so let's make this number 7. And now as I go over to 8, and then I could jump back into 7 to confirm that my custom space has been accepted and saved. So this is C3 Part 1, and we're going to start by introducing you, or walking through, if you will, the provided libraries and elements. In this workspace number 8 or 7, now that if you have also saved a workspace workspace as I have, your libraries are located at the bottom center panel of the Compass Navigator software. As you could follow my mouse here, and you could see. Now the far left is called Events and Actions, and Events and Actions is not a library. This instead is where you will view any events, actions, as the name implies, that may be associated and added onto one of your graphical elements or variables or macros of your system, of your project. But after that events and actions, we then have the options of viewing our libraries. For example, image library, as the name implies, that's where all of our images are located. Now, if you have not yet made any custom libraries, you will have, as you press this drop-down menu, only 2 options, and those will be default and not selected. You will not have something in there called JF images. That is my own custom library that we will teach you how to create those here further down this training curriculum. And so not selected means it's not open, but if you'd like to view all the images we offer you in the software, go ahead and select default, and the software will now open up the default images library. Now that we have our images library open, it's an excellent time actually, since we're mostly just going to be walking through and viewing what is inside all of the tabs and all of the libraries. It's an excellent time to go ahead and adjust our workspace, so that you can actually see more of it. And of course, if I want to jump back into view 8 or view 7, I can do so, or any of the views there, Workspace Layouts. So first we see the back panels. Now, back panels could be the images, the provided compass control background, whether it be black or in the we actually have white backgrounds as well that are provided here. Additionally, though, they can also be these sort of grayish, light gray or dark gray, translucent images that look quite nice when you add them to the background of a button group, and we'll certainly show you what we mean by that later in this presentation. And we have these backgrounds that are based on the various iOS devices you're using, such as this one here, the back panel 1024 by 769, so that's obviously going to be made for an iPad held in landscape orientation. Where we have 768 by 1025, so iPad in portrait view. And in fact, as we look at our control designer here, and we go ahead and select that main page, you'll notice that it actually already automatically adds that black compass background to the page. So that is there by default as you add new iPads and new iOS controllers to your system. It is already there. So let's just give a quick example here, though, of these graphics. Here is a nice light gray. I could just take it and drag and drop it either onto the iPad, okay, or I could take it and drag and drop it to our tree. Now, hey, where did it go? We see the shape, but we don't see that. So we could see that our depth level here of these images, and that's something that some of the properties of some of these images may be at certain depth levels. And so if you drag something there, there's not a standard depth level that we have everything in here at. So if the background we saw was at 1, well then we could just make that light gray panel at 2, and you see it's a very nice translucent smoked panel, if you will. And now we could see here I could add, say, a dark gray panel on top of it, maybe even one here, and I could either just drag it onto the iPad or into the tree. So let's just move this one into the tree this time, and you'll see the different ways we could do this. And so we have it, and this is at depth level 2. We could just make it at depth level 3, for example, and now it's in front. And how do we kind of make something look pretty nice out of this? Well, I want this black one to be right on top of the light gray one, where my light gray is at XY coordinates 139.88, and my width is 336. So let's make this darker one with 336. Okay, 336, and I believe the X coordinate there 139.88 XY on the light one. 139, tab over, and let's just make our Y positioning 88 as well. And now where my width is 336, we know that's a good match. The height, let's make it something maybe smaller, like 60, for example. And now we kind of have a nice panel here that could look very good if we add a little text to it, okay? And could make for a very nice panel. So these are the images here that you could use to make some of those things possible, okay? We have icons. These are images of icons. You'll notice in our button library, in groups library, you'll see a lot of these again. However, these are just the images we use. Common button, for example, this is a very elaborate library of buttons that you'll find yourself using often. They're just the images, though. These are not the buttons. Now, keep in mind, an image can be a button in the sense that you can have events and actions stored on an image. However, it does not have an upstate or a downstate like a button does. In fact, you could kind of see here what this button 068 by 51 looks like in the off state, or what is probably the upstate. Generically, of course, that could all be manipulated by you. And the button 068 by 51 looks like in the on state as a probably in the down state. When I push that button down, what happens? So if I drag an image on the iPad, as we saw here, it is this little icon of the what looks like a picture, as you see it in the page designer tree. And just keep this in mind here as we move forward to the buttons library. We'll visit this 0 button again, and you'll see that it's just going to be one look, and when we drag it onto the screen, you're going to have different states, up states, down states, etc. Some buttons even have overstates. So here's black buttons. You see black and silver. Well, that again is probably black when it's in the up state, and then silver when it's in the down state, just temporarily kind of giving the look as though you're pressing it down. Corner buttons, display buttons, images of displays and buttons that feature those displays, navigation buttons, source button, triangle buttons. So we leave all of these images of all of these buttons here. Why? Because you may actually use them to create your own custom button. You may call one of our provided images when you'd like to have a button look a certain way. You may call one of those images, or maybe even your own custom image, and we'll show you how to do that there as well. And you may do that to create your own custom button that isn't prepackaged in our software here. Zone buttons, these are images of zones. Often these are smaller, so they're often used in your iPods or your iPhones, your iPod Touch or iPhone, or if you're familiar with our demo app, downloaded for free from Compass Control on the App Store. If you're familiar with that, you know that there is a all zones page, and we put a lot of those smaller images there. And then we also have zone panels, which is where you have larger zone graphics that are more commonly used on iPads because they do take up a good chunk of real estate. Of course, it's only an option there. Some of your zone graphics have this gray frame around them where you may store your own text for identifying a zone or whatever you may want to do in there. And then as we scroll down, you'll notice that we also put those zone graphics without that frame, and we even have the frame by itself, so you could kind of create your own custom zone graphic and then put a group around them and make your own group out of it, as we'll show you how to do. Remote panels, these are all the buttons that you may put on one of those pop-up remotes, for example. Setup, sliders, these are the different images we use when we create a slider. Okay, and then we just arrow over to the right here to see the rest of what is available, including the white panels I had mentioned earlier. If you have a white iPad or iPod Touch, iPhone with a white frame, that is, those may be useful to you. Okay, and channel logos as well. We have a pretty extensive library of channel logos, and these are not buttons, meaning if I push them, they're not going to do anything, but you could create your own custom favorites buttons using these logos. And of course, if you don't see your logo that you're looking for in here, we can certainly you could certainly import that, okay, into this library, which we will show you how to do. We can move on from image library to text box library. We go there, it says not selected, meaning it's not open, and we'll open up the default, which is the one we provide. Again, anything you see there, JF, it just happens to be my initials. Those are my own custom libraries, and we'll teach you how to create your own. Now, text box libraries are interesting. We have a few different in here. Certainly nothing too elaborate, because basically I could drag and drop any of these text boxes into the iPad and really do whatever I want with it. So let's go ahead and show you exactly what I mean by that. So I drag this text in here, and we see it's now located at 0, 0 XY axis from the top left, and it has the width 100, height 30. Let's make this width 200. Let's make this height say 60. And what I want to do, my whole point of that, is I would like to put it right on top of this the darker gray image, which was located at 140/88. And you know what? This is a good opportunity to show you how I could change these things, the properties of these different elements if I'd like. And sizing is actually very important when you're building a lot of your own custom GUI interface. You'll probably really find the benefit of indicating your sizings on your elements, so you don't have to click them and select them every time to reference the width and height or position of those. But I'm at XY 140/88, so let's move this guy here over to that same 140/88, and we'll move forward my depth, give it the +10, and now it's in front of that dark gray. And I have a full height of 60 in this text box to play around with, and that's why I made it pretty large. So let's give it 36 here, for example, my text. And now I have a little bit of room to write really what I want to write there. Oh, I don't see it all, so let's increase the width of that text box. And there we are. Okay. And maybe even just to show you, we have a lot of tools here for these text images, centering and positioning tools, and then we could even adjust colors here if you'd like. Okay, so like I was saying, the text box library, yeah, we have some that are kind of prepackaged there. One's a little gray, one's a lighter color, one might be blue, etc., etc. One might have a certain font. But really, without much work at all, you could really customize it to be however you'd like. And here's a look at all of our fonts. Recently, we went beyond the basic fonts in your Apple, supported by Apple iPad and whatnot, and have opened up new lettering for Russia, Chinese characters in traditional and simplified. We also have Ukrainian characters, and that list can grow as requested by our dealers, so please let us know if you have some additional wants there. Buttons library. I promised we would take a look at that. In the buttons library, we start with the empty buttons, meaning they're just kind of blank. You see they have some text. And in fact, any button could have text, even if it is a button that has text kind of embedded as part of the image, if you will. So we could go ahead and move over one of these buttons. Let's see. Again, we could just either drag it on the tree or anywhere we'd like on the iPad. And we put it here, and this is a nice reference point of see the source button. It's nice to have the actual width and height in there, and this one 173 by 115. So let me add that in there, and I'll show you why in a moment here, why I'm doing this. Because we added recently the information on the width of our gray images there, where we're kind of making this panel. They're at 336, where as their width, where our button here is at 173 width. So what we can do actually is to find a way to easily censor this without using our positioning and alignment and spacing tools. We know that 136 minus 173 equals 163. And we could divide that by 2 and get 81.5. So what if I go ahead and see here, move this over. See if I take a look here. This is at 140 plus 81. 140 plus 81. So if I position this button at, say, 221 on the x-axis, it should actually look pretty well centered inside this whole group here. I was pretty close where I dragged it, wasn't I? There we go. And so I want to show you here the properties of these, what is a button. So you could see the difference between a button and an image. You see the button icon there. It looks like a button has that triangle up top center, kind of maybe letting you know that you could depress that. This button out of the box has a up state, button up. I select that, and you could actually see in the properties on the right hand panel the image file name, and that's kind of where I was getting at, how you could import your own images into that, into the button. And just because it looks one way now, if you choose a different image, it's going to look totally different. We have text up, okay, we have button down. We take a look. There you go. It's got a little bit of a bluish backlighting, and that is the image that says button source TV's blank on. Okay, where the other said off. That's the name of that image. And then we have the text, which is blue, versus our text in the up state. Select that here, and is white. Okay, so these are all the images here, and or all the sub elements of this button. And what are the other sub elements? And it is actually very easy to manipulate. We have image over, which could be a nice blue fill to that. And in fact, we should go ahead and find that. We should find that. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our image over and also our text over. Because when it's in that over state, or that active state, it's nice to have the text there as well if you're using text in the other states, the up or down state. And we could take a look at our button over, and we could see that it really doesn't know what to do with itself, because this button doesn't traditionally have that, but we're really making our own custom button here. And so what do we want to do? We need to find an image to define what that overstate for this button is. And I happen to know, and I like to share with all of you, that we have a very good button for this sort or for this button we've been working with, and everything in here is located is named alphabetically. Let's see here. So if I jump into the main, let's see, main. It's called main button 171 by 114 active is where I want to go. So let's jump over to M, and there we go. 171. That's our off. We want active. There it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and import that. You guys will find that if you're using this kind of large rectangular button here, this is a really nice image for it. And let's go ahead and move its position appropriately. It should be 0, 0 because it's within the button. 0, 0 on the upper left-hand axis, not the center axis. Oops. 0, 0. There we are. Okay, and when we look at the text up, it is there. We see the text down is text up is white, text down is this bluish color, and text over is kind of its own thing as well. We see it there. So very nice trick to copying text and just copy from one, select it here in the tree, and Control V to paste it over. The only thing that doesn't carry with it is the Y positioning. So we're going to have to apply 73 as the Y position here in the overstate as well. And we'll match the height dimension. Okay, so we could go ahead here, and now we have this button created. And now you could even jump in our emulator mode here in the program emulator, or even just pressing Control E, quick stroke, and we could actually see what happens here with this button when we press it. There we go. There it is, up, down state. And show you guys a quick little trick here. Events and actions, and when we press this button down, there's no event on it yet. We have yet to define any of that, so let's create a new event when we press it down. And that's going to be a toggle of this element, a toggle of its graphical appearance. So when we press this down, we're going to affect this element, and we'll show you later through this training, or any other elements, and setting value toggle. Let's see here. Value toggle. And let's just test that out here. And enter our tree. Control E. Here we go. Let's press this button. And there's the toggle as it went from up, we pressed it, went to the down state, and now it's being held in this quote-unquote active state here. So we've just created our very own button, and as we work further through here, we'll show you how to save that and whatnot. But what we're especially doing right now is just teaching you about the difference between buttons and images, and you can see here that the point being buttons have many states to them. Okay, so let's jump back into libraries here. Continue the tour of the rest of the button libraries. Where we pulled this one was from empty, I believe, and we have auxiliary libraries. Now you could really understand here what a button is. Remember that common? Remember I told you I promised we would take a look at the 0. We have the 0 that is silver. Let's quickly drag this onto our iPad as well. Again, we could try to center it. I'll show you the alignment tools. It's asking, hey, we have events and actions here. What are we controlling? There's really nothing here. So let's just say no changing, or we could just, no changing. There we go. And now we have our 0 button on there. And if we go again into our emulator, remember I promised we'd take a look here. We have the silver with the black lettering or dark gray lettering, and the silver button with the blue lettering. Okay, the upstate, the downstate. Control E once again to exit emulator mode. Black buttons, which have silver appearance when they're in the downstate. Corner buttons, something like this, could go very nicely in the corner of one of these graphic icons or graphic panels that we've made. So let's go ahead and throw this guy up here, for example. Okay, and this one is a little smaller, but you could see the sizing is indicated there in the name, which again, why that having a good name could be very important sometimes. We could zoom on in to maybe try to position that best possible. We could either do that with the directional arrows on our keypad. It looks pretty good horizontally across the top. Move it to the left a few bumps. Let's see. And again, it's moving a little more slowly because I have that screen recording software running at this time. Okay, so that's an example of what we could do with corner buttons, display buttons, navigation buttons, source buttons. Okay, we have this kind of main button with the sources on it. Of course, we have just the a picture of these, which again, because they're in the buttons library, we know they have up and down state, so we could actually use that even though it doesn't have that rectangular shape around them. We could use them as buttons nonetheless. Okay, let's go ahead and enter our slider library. Sliders are typically used to control, say, volume or lighting, okay? And we have vertical, horizontal. Actually, a lot of these are empty as that continues to grow. And actually, the reason why they are empty for the most part right now is because a lot of the sliders end up being groups, meaning you have a slider, but maybe you also have a open or closed button there along with the slider, or an on or off button, or even a up arrow, down arrow button, so that if you're using your finger on the slider to drag, you move it over to 50 and you want to then move it to 45, you know that it might be a little easier just to hit that down arrow to do that. And so we create a whole group out of that slider essentially. And so a lot of what you saw there being empty in the sliders library is empty because they have now been moved to the groups. Now in the groups library, this is where we have what looks like buttons here, these group, navigate, zones, but really why these are located in the groups library, and certainly we have images and buttons like this as well, because this is actually a whole group where you probably have your button, and you have an external text. You might have an image as well. So I have my own custom buttons where we perhaps didn't provide something that had the exact picture I wanted inside of a button. So you drop that image on top of the button. You add the text you may want in there as well, maybe from a text box, or as you know now, you could just add text to just about any button and just position it where you want and give it whatever sort of appearance you want. But here we have a group that is made of images, of buttons, of text, etc., etc., etc. And again, we also have sliders located in here. Here's control. Now here's an empty group. Now this is good. This is actually something I was looking for, to show you how to make a group out of this. And we'll show you more about your own custom groups here and throughout this presentation. But if we look here, we have this the large panel is 335 by 614, as we've already indicated, or 336 by 614 it looks like actually, and our XY is 139.88. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for this group, 139.88 XY positioning, and we have the width the width and height we're gonna match our large panel. So 336 we know. So I had a typo in there apparently. 614, and actually I could even go in and name that. 336 by 614. Okay, and now we have this custom group here that matches the dimensions, and all we got to do is drag and drop these elements into the group. We could do it one at a time, or you can also select multiple items by clicking in the tree and holding down the Shift key. Drag. There we are, empty group. Now they're all in there. Very good. So now my group contains all of these elements. Okay. So now you see here that empty group, probably going to be something you'll use quite commonly. Display. These are groups of display type pictures, so they have some elements to them that make them a group. You can drag them in to explore further. Remotes, iPad, let's see, sliders. What is this? Temperature, perhaps? Some of these, again, we provide some pretty abridged names at time, and you know, when in doubt, you could even just drag things over to your own user library that you'll create yourself there by further watching these videos. Okay, zone groups. Now you see here they have that gray frame around the images, and then you could also kind of squint a little closely there maybe and see some text in there and some on-off buttons, that sort of thing. So we made a group out of that. Here's let's see, lighting, new. Okay. Sliders, let's see. I actually was wanting to show you all an example of how sliders become groups, and you could see that here in this horizontal slider that's lighting and shades. You have an on-off button or open-close button along there with it, and excuse me for making you squint there a little bit, but it's exactly what I meant by why some of these have been moved over to the groups library as opposed to the sliders library where they previously were located. So we'll open up our list library now. Take a look at this and open up the default. So opening the list library, and you have in the zone tab here your empty panel zones. Just like we had an empty group, we have empty list. Now what is a list? That's a great place to start, actually. List is actually how Compass Control harnesses the power of iOS. iOS, we are familiar with the flick or the swipe gesture, if you will, that iOS uses to allow you to navigate, and of course that has been embraced and utilized by many smart devices, not strictly limited to iOS these days. And what do we have here? We have control. So these are those controllers where I could flick either left, right, or even horizontally or vertically with lists. In fact, I can contain a list within a list, but one must be horizontal, one must be vertical. So obviously we're limited to two. Display list. So obviously this is a group of images of the TVs there that or displays, monitors, if you will, that we could swipe through and probably just have the same image over and over, but that could be useful in your template building. Okay. And now we can open our multimedia library where we can show you what we have here. Multimedia library is where we keep basically anything where you'd like to do an embedded web app. And really, we have a few defaults here. Web Key Digital, for example, is the Key Digital web page. Request Maestro is their demo from Request Video and Audio Server. Okay, YouTube videos. But these are mostly just as a quick way of dragging and dropping these things into the iPad or your controller. But really, what's going to determine what you're viewing is actually, as we look at the multimedia item, is actually this here, the value. This is the URL, the web page. And anything that's HTTP based we can use, IP cameras as well, but not Flash, not Adobe Flash, as you know. That's not, doesn't really translate too well when you're working with an iOS type device, but we could apply the sizing, the positioning. I see that I'm hanging over to the right there just slightly, so let's move that over to the left a little bit to compensate there. There we are. And now it doesn't really look to be hanging over the ledge of that panel there any further. Okay. So really, all that matters here is the value again. And YouTube's quite nice because why? Because it actually they have URLs of the videos alone instead of the whole web page. And so anytime you're embedding videos into your template, of course, YouTube is probably more or less for show, demonstrating the capability of embedding web versus something you'd like permanently installed, unless you're doing maybe a corporate install and you'd like that corporation's main commercial or something to be embedded in the template, in the controller interface, then that could be quite useful. And we'll give you more information on the utilizing the multimedia in upcoming portions of this C3 training. So now what we're going to do, though, let's go ahead and delete that that multimedia from the interface. And I'd like to go back to Work Layout 8, actually. Let's go ahead and do that, because that even will that will be pretty comfortable for me. I could adjust the zoom of the iPad here. There we go. And now what we want to do is introduce you to some of the alignment and spacing tools of the Compass Navigator. To do that, what I'd like to do is actually take this button, my source button here, and duplicate that a few times. I duplicated it 5 times. And what we'll do here is actually grab a hold of all of those source buttons, and we're going to move them outside of that group. Okay. And so let's move them over a bit. Now our XY axis or positioning is based on the iPad as a whole instead of within that group, because they're no longer within that group. So let's move them over to, say, 500. Okay. And we got 500, 167 for one. We know the height of each of these is 115. Let's move this to 550. Okay. And actually, as a means of effectively demonstrating the alignment tools, we won't do so much XY, excuse me, positioning. Instead, we're just going to take a few of these, okay, and just kind of drag them and drop them, maybe in an approximate location of where we want them to be. Okay, grab our third button. Okay, fourth button. And you'll notice I'm kind of sloppily positioning these buttons actually on purpose. Okay. There we go. And it looks like what I can now do, you know what, let's move this one on over here as well. So let's first introduce you to the alignment and sizing options. Okay. we can actually view all of these by right-clicking. Okay, and we could see alignment options and spacing options. Let's start with our alignment options. And you have two options. They're most commonly used, the horizontal center and vertical center, where we take the center of each of the elements that we'll be aligning, and we could align them based on that center, either horizontally or vertically. And those are accessed with some quick shortcuts there with F5 or F6. But additionally, you may not want to use the center point as a reference. You may want to use the top, the bottom when you're horizontally aligning, or the left or right when you are vertically aligning. But let's go ahead here and let's go into a vertical alignment, center point as a reference. And I go in and I select that either by hitting F6 or from the drop down. And actually, we could see our cursor here is has the look to it that indicates what alignment mode we're in here. It's a vertical alignment, and I just select everything that I'd like to align, including this guy over here. I'm going to want to include that. Let's see, not the group. Let's see these buttons. Okay, there we go. There we go. My source buttons. Okay. It's grabbing a hold of that group, which I don't want it to do. So let's go ahead and deselect that by clicking again. There is a means to aligning things that are within a group. You must lock that group down first. So now I've got everything selected, indicated by that yellow outline, and all I have to do is just double click when I'm ready to make that alignment. There we go. And so now everything is perfectly aligned, all 5 of my buttons based on the center of those items. There is a 6th button over there, but I've just, it's still, I'm not sure which of the 6 that would be, so let's not concern ourselves with that. And let's say now that these are not evenly spaced. We could tell that by looking at these outlines. So let's go into our right click here, and let's go into our spacing options. And we have horizontal dividing and vertical dividing that are the F7 and F8 quick options. We're going to want a vertical dividing. What does it mean, horizontal and vertical dividing? Basically, they're going to take the outermost elements that you'd like to apply the spacing to, and it's going to measure the space between those 2 elements and apply an even spacing to all of the elements that we are applying to. Vertical, though, from top or vertical from bottom would take either the 2 topmost elements or 2 bottommost elements and use their spacing as a reference and apply it to the rest of the elements we're applying that spacing to. Similarly, horizontal from left, horizontal from right takes either the furthest leftmost or furthest rightmost elements and measures the spacing between those 2 elements and applies it to the rest of the elements we're applying the spacing to. So we're doing a vertical button group here, so let's go ahead and choose vertical dividing. Again, some of these others may be you may find useful, but I do like the ones that we offer those quick shortcuts to. And right now it's moved from alignment to spacing mode, and basically I have the pink outline kind of references the 2 outermost, as I had mentioned there, and even our icon kind of tells us that. We have the boxes on the top left, top right. As actually I can go using the left or right arrow pad and adjust my spacing modes here. Same thing with the alignment modes as well, using left or right. Okay, so right now I'm actually, as I hit left, I'm looking at the horizontal center, or horizontal spacing, horizontal from right, as you could see, the two rightmost squares, horizontal from left. I hit the up key or down key, and I have the bottommost. I have the center reference and the let's see, topmost reference. And you see the pink outlines have adjusted accordingly. But I want to use the entire spacing I have here between them. So let's select one more item which wasn't previously selected, and now my two reference points should adjust. Yeah, there you go. Sure enough, we have pink on the topmost and bottommost elements and yellow on everything in between, and we just go ahead and double click, and that spacing will automatically take place for us. There we go. And as a third of the alignment and spacing tools, actually, let's go ahead and exit this. How do we do it? We just select anything in the tree there, for example. Hey, there's our 6th button. Good. I'm glad we found that one. So let's go ahead and drag this guy on over to be with the rest of them. And let's say here I kind of want to make 3 rows of 2. How's that sound? So I'm going to kind of roughly drag and drop these into something that I think is reasonable and would look somewhat aesthetically pleasing when perfected, as we'll show you here. And we'll show you what is the referred to as the 2D matrix alignment tool. Again, my apologies for any slow performance here with this screen capture software. Okay, so we could go ahead and right click to enter 2D matrix alignment, horizontal dividing or vertical dividing. Left top base. Basically, the default, which you could quickly access with F9, is left top dividing. You also have left top based, right bottom base, right top base, left bottom base, or left bottom dividing, and left bottom based. So let's go ahead and enter the left top dividing, and you'll see based on the icon what that means. Let me drag the icon somewhere we could view it, and actually what this does is actually you could see the top left corner and bottom right corner kind of look different from the other objects that we have. And so when we select all of these, it kind of indicates that those are going to be our reference points, and they're going to apply equal spacing and alignment based on all of these reference points. One more here. So the top left and the bottom right, there we go. We select this top left one now, and that should certainly be one of our reference points. Absolutely it is. And it should be noted, you don't have to hold shift when you're in these alignment or spacing modes, as indicated by your cursor there. You're really you're in that mode until you exit that kind of those tools by clicking in the tree, for example. So we go ahead and we double click. We can see the properties are adjusting there, and voila, we now have this this matrix alignment. And by the way, that's automatically detected how many rows I wanted, but there are also options of how many rows we'd like to apply there, and you could see it was in auto detect mode. And of course, escape would be a means also of exiting that alignment mode.